Good morning from Helsinki. As promised, we're continuing along doing some poetry of S.T. Coleridge, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, British Romantic poet who originated conversational poetry. He's really not that far back in history. Like, I think about it in terms of history that I think about and relate to, such as, the college I went to was founded 3 years before he was born. So it's like, I went to college in America, so it can't be that old. He was born in 1772, and so, or think in terms of Finland. When Coleridge was born, Finland was still a part of the Swedish Empire, the Kingdom of Sweden, as it had been for hundreds of years. And by the time Coleridge was middle age, Finland was a autonomous Grand Duchy of Russia under Alexander I. So, I always try to think of historical figures in terms that I can relate to. Anyway, Coleridge, as I said in the first one, he was remarkable for kind of inaugurating this idea of conversational poetry, which was actually extended even further by his dear friend William Wordsworth in the Preludes and stuff like that, and you still see hints of it in, of course, 20th century poetry. But he also had a great sense of humor, and he was also a great walker. He was extremely enthusiastic about his walking, like some people I know. And the poem I'm going to read today, not one of his best, but one of his most relatable and fun and conversational, kind of an example of what I was mentioning, his conversational style of poetry. This lime tree bower my prison. And the other thing I like about him, I just mentioned how he's somewhat close in history to where we are at the present moment. He's not all that far removed and antiquated. Most of the words he uses are words we still use today, but in the title of this poem, for instance, we have the word bower, B-O-W-E-R, which I don't hear much in everyday speech. But I was just thinking about that word. It is kind of like, in this case, obviously, it's just like a little nook, little shady little place underneath a tree, where he's contemplating life and nature and trying to recuperate. He had some kind of accident, I believe. So this poem was sparked because I think he burned his foot somehow. He was saying, as he often was with other people, with his friends, he lodged with the Wordsworths for many years. This doctor took him in for a long time. He was kind of a sickly person. He wasn't good at business. And he kind of depended upon other people taking a charm to him and letting him stay at their place. And then they realized he was a little bit difficult because, he was an opium addict. He liked his laudanum, which literally was for a condition that he had, rheumatism, but he liked it so much he called it his divine repose. And so he wasn't always the best house guest. And in this case, he had some kind of accident where he couldn't walk, which is one of the most terrifying things that I can think of in my own life. And I almost was there. I had a little odd accident this spring when I was in Milano. Milano is the most walkable city in the world. I think it was ranked number 2 by some researchers in Australia, but I think Milano is just the ideal walkers' paradise, urban walkers, and you're very, very close to like agricultural lands and nature, even within the city limits. You get out to some of these gigantic parks, and then you can go along the Navili, the canals, and you can get out right into the countryside. And you can walk and walk and walk and crisscross the city all day long. But I had a little slip. It was kind of embarrassing, but so here I was, zoppicando. I was limping a little bit, and the thing I was panicking most about is like I couldn't take my long, twice daily walks, and I was imagining that I might be like this lime tree bower in my prison, as Coleridge so gloriously puts it. So he was in a situation like that, sounds like much more severe than mine, in which he was confined, but his friends were all going out on a walk, including his friend Charles Lamb, and he actually addresses this and mentions Charles Lamb in the poem. It's another way, this is one of his prime conversational poems. And Charles Lamb was an essayist and a poet himself, but he also worked in London at the India House as part of the big trading company, and he wrote essays about that. And he lamented the fact that he didn't have enough time for reading, but he gave a lot of insight into the operations of, a major global operation back in those days, the India House. But anyway, so Coleridge is, this great walking enthusiast. He coined the word mountaineer. He coined the term mountaineer from a walking expedition he did in the Lake District. But here he is thinking about his friends, thinking about nature, thinking about his position, and I'm just going to dive right into this. So he says, well, they're gone, and here I must remain, this lime tree bower my prison. I have lost beauties and feelings such as would have been most sweet to my remembrance, even when age had dimmed mine eyes to blindness. They, meanwhile, friends whom I never more may meet again, on springy heath along the hilltop edge, wander in gladness and wind down, perchance, to that roaring dell of which I told, the roaring dell o'erwooded, narrow, deep, and only speckled by the midday sun, where its slim trunk the ash from rock to rock flings arching like a bridge. That branchless ash, unsunned and damp, whose few poor yellow leaves ne'er tremble in the gale, yet tremble still, fanned by the waterfall. And there, my friends, behold the dark green file of long, lank weeds, that all at once, a most fantastic sight, still nod and drip beneath the dripping edge of the blue claystone. Now, my friends emerge beneath the wide heaven, and view again the many steepled tract, magnificent of hilly fields and meadows, and the sea, with some fair bark, perhaps, whose sails light up, the slip of smooth, clear blue betwixt two isles of purple shadow. Yes, they wander on in gladness all, but thou, methinks, most glad, my gentle-hearted Charles, for thou hast pined and hungered after nature many a year, in the great city pent, winning thy way with sad yet patient soul through evil and pain and strange calamity. Ah, slowly sink beneath the western ridge, thou glorious sun. Shine in the slant beams of the sinking orb, ye purple heath flowers, richlier burn, ye clouds. Live in the yellow light, ye distant groves, and kindle, thou blue ocean. So my friend, stuck with deep joy, may stand as I have stood, silent with swimming sense, yea, gazing round on the wide landscape, gaze till all doth seem less gross than bodily, and of such hues as veil the Almighty Spirit, when yet he makes spirits perceive his presence. A delight comes sudden on my heart, and I am glad as I myself were there. nor in this bower, this little lime tree bower, have I not marked much that has soothed me. Pale beneath the blaze hung the transparent foliage, and I watched some broad and sunny leaf and loved to see the shadow of the leaf and stem above dappling its sunshine. And that walnut tree was richly tinged, and a deep radiance lay full on the ancient ivy, which usurps those fronting elms, and now with blackest mass makes their dark branches gleam a lighter hue. Through the late twilight, and though now the bat wheels silent by, and not a swallow twitters, yet still the solitary bumblebee sings in the beanflower. Henceforth I shall know that nature ne'er deserts the wise and pure. No plot so narrow be but nature there, no waste so vacant, but may well employ each faculty of sense, and keep the heart awake to love and beauty. And sometimes 'tis well to be bereft of promised good, that we may lift the soul and contemplate with lively joy the joys we cannot share. My gentle-hearted Charles, when the last rook beat its straight path along the dusky air, homewards I blessed it, deeming its black wing, now a dim speck, now vanishing in light, had crossed the mighty orb's dilated glory, while thou stoodst gazing out, or when all was still, flew creaking o'er thy head, and had a charm for thee, my gentle-hearted Charles, to whom no sound is dissonant which tells of life. So he really stuck the landing there. And what I love about this is, of course, it's just like a journal entry. It's like he's just writing in his diary in some ways. You know, here I am, poor me, with the bum foot, having to sit under this lovely little lime tree in the garden and just contemplate, you know, a day I would have enjoyed being out with my friends, walking along the heath. And just I love all the particulars that he comes up with. And it's like you imagine someone sitting in a garden and having to imagine what wonders and delights, what's small things that you mostly don't notice. And he's like feeling them more intensely because he can't be there. And like he even says, where does he say it? He says it, and sometimes 'tis well to be bereft of promised good, that we may lift the soul and contemplate with lively joy the joys we cannot share. And then, but just this accumulation of particular details that he's imagining his friends as he's like kicking back there. And I was also thinking about, you know, this term bower, which has some root in the German word B-A-U-E-R, which can be taken to be more like an inner room, kind of like, well, or like he says, prison, the lime tree bower, my prison, or bird cage. And then I was thinking about, you know, it's also kind of like pergola, or, you know, pergolato, is that it's like, you know, the open lattice roof, like architectural structure, but light architectural structure that kind of shades a walkway or sitting area or a focal point. And then it also made me think of the fake novel that was mentioned in E.M. Forster's novel, Room with a View. Many people have probably seen the Merchant Ivory production from, I guess that would have been the 80s, Room with a View, and guys talking, they're out in the garden, you know, outside of Florence or somewhere, and they're talking about the loggia, and he's going to have a novel called Under the Loggia. And it's kind of interesting to think about loggia, Loggia, obviously. Loggia is a structure similar to a pergola, but it's usually only one side is open to nature or to the garden, and that it's more like part of a house. So it's like where the house extends into nature, whereas a pergola is a freestanding structure. Or like this lime tree that he's under, he's out in the garden. He's in nature, but not really in there. It's more domesticated, intentional, and his friends are out in the wild. One of the things that really got me connected to Mr. Mr. Samuel Taylor Coleridge was his sense of adventure in mountaineering, coining the term mountaineering. I mean, that's a pretty amazing thing. And that I love the way he talks about scrambling. He says, which apparently he liked to do. He said in one of his diaries or letters, I think this was in a letter he wrote to one of his friends. He was a great letter writer, lost art in these days. There's one sort of gambling to which I am much addicted, and that not of the least criminal kind for a man who has children and a concern. It is this: when I find it convenient to descend from a mountain, I am too confident and too indolent to look round about and wind about till I find a track or other symptom of safety. But I wander on, and when it is first possible to descend, there I go, relying upon fortune, for now far down this possibility will continue. So it was yesterday afternoon, and then he goes on and on and on, and it's like I read that at the right time, where I was remembering sometimes I love to do that. I've taken so many risks in hiking, solo, or with friends. I remember particularly one time I was with a group. We were studying ancient history and archaeology in Greece, and we went up Mount Olympus. And we were going to go farther up towards the summit, but it ended up, I forget what happened, but we left much later in the day, and we decided to keep it, just do like maybe a 2 or 3 hour hike. I was a little disappointed, because I would have gone ahead and done it myself. But so I got ahead of everybody, and then I saw a point where I knew I wasn't going to make the summit, obviously, but I saw all these rocks and where I thought you could have a nice view, and so I scrambled up. So I had already left everyone behind, but I knew about the time we were supposed to meet up and head back to the town, and but I just wanted to sit up there and look, see what you could see, and then I scrambled down these hills. I was way off trail, like he's describing in that little excerpt from a letter. And then when I reconnected with the group, they said that they asked at least 2 or 3 groups of people who had been descending down the trail if they had seen me, if they described me and everything, and it's like nobody had seen me, so they were all a little bit worried. And I was like, no, I was just scrambling around. I went way off trail, and so I earned that reputation, I guess. Or I also remember one time in South Africa, in Cape Town, one friend and I, we had gone up Table Mountain, and we were going to go across and then take the cable car. I think that's what they have it, the cable car back down to where we were staying in Orenziazic. And I think the wind was too high, or we read the timetable wrong. And so, we had been hiking all day. Of course, it started off, it was extremely hot and humid. And then when you get up top, it's just shockingly cold and breezy, mysterious and foggy. And you see the amazing differences in vegetation as you go, because you go from Kirstenbusch Botanical Garden up and then over and then back down into the city bowl. And so we had to scramble down as the sun was setting. And there are how did Coleridge say it? There are symptoms of safety. There are tracks or symptoms of safety, but we needed to get down fast because we wanted to get down before it got too dark, and we like forged our own path. I don't think either one of us slipped, but it was a little crazy. It was death-defying gambling. He said there's a sort of gambling to which I'm much addicted, and it is. I'm sure anyone can relate to this who loves hiking and mountaineering, as Coleridge termed, in that you love going off trail and scrambling and finding your own path, and it's kind of like you get into this flow and this rhythm where you find the right places to step as you go down, and once in a while you slip, but you're so proud of yourself when you don't, when you seem to be doing something that is impossible. But anyway, I'm veering off. Well, I'm actually not, because apparently Coleridge was like that. Like, he would give these series of lectures about, say, Shakespeare or poets, removed from him in his day, and people would say, well, sometimes he was brilliant, but he never used notes. It's like sometimes he was like really brilliant, and sometimes he was just really, really annoying because he would go off on all these tangents and ramble and ramble and ramble. And so he was frustrating. It was just like, but it was obviously, he was a genius, and he had a point of view that no one else had, and he had delved so deeply into the poetic imagination that he was always worth listening to. But he sometimes left his listeners behind. I hope I'm not leaving anyone behind here. But I love this little poem, The Lime Tree Bower, because it has so much specificity. It's one of the poems that's kind of an exemplar of this style, of this ethos he created with the conversational style of romantic poetry. And he doesn't go too far into the supernatural or to the weird metaphysical. It's like literally he's just longing to be out with his friends and thinking very intensely about what they might be seeing, because he's obviously had many a hike in this territory. But I will leave it there, and I hope you have a fantastic day and read some poetry, Coleridge or whomever else, and we'll talk again soon.